podcast in the third episode. Okay. Hello, could you please introduce yourself for us?
Well, as you said, my name is Lori Day. I was born and raised in California, and then graduated from University of California, Davis School of Veterinary Medicine in 1989. And then shortly thereafter, my husband and I, John and I moved to Idaho, and we practiced there with dairies for 29 years before moving to Mongolia about 4 years ago.
Such a long, yes, you have a long history of the experience with veterinarians. Yes, how about the Dr. John Day?
So, as Lori said, we practiced in Idaho for 29 years and then made the move to Mongolia here 4 years ago. While we were in Idaho, we did specifically dairy practice, and we worked with reproduction, nutrition, milk quality. We worked with milking machines, calf raising, all aspects of dairy management as it related to animal health. And then we also did work with dairy herders, with the herders, and doing education and training for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's happy to hear that about that. And then actually, what inspired you to become a veterinarian?
Well, my brother, he was 12 years older than me. He went to veterinary college, and I can remember probably about the time I was about 12, he was getting towards the end of that, or kind of in the middle of his schooling there. And it was really interesting to see the things that he was involved with and the things he was learning. And then as he got out into practice, and it just looked really exciting and interesting. I've always been very fond of animals, and grew up as a much younger sibling in my family. And so I was kind of a lot of times by myself with just the dogs and the cats and the whatever. So that really appealed to me. So I went ahead and went to veterinary college, and also did a master's degree afterwards in preventive veterinary medicine.
Mm-hmm. How about the Dr. Tom?
And so for me, my dad was a small animal veterinarian, and so I was raised in a veterinary family, and we also raised avocados. And so we had an agricultural aspect as well to my upbringing. And so looking at veterinary medicine and being able to work with cattle was a great blend of being both working with animals and being able to be in agriculture. And so when I got out of high school, looking at doing veterinary medicine, but looking at working with beef cattle, while I was in vet school, discovered that there was such a thing as dairy, and that would allow me to work with cows year-round rather than just seasonally, and that really appealed to me. And so being able to work with cattle, work with the people who work with cattle and own cattle are some real highlights of being a dairy practitioner.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and you guys know about that Mongolia, we have such a livestock population is largely extended to the nomadic. It's like where herders depend to the pasture, grazing animals, and also seasonal mobility. This accounts is Mongolia like 85 to 90% of total milk, national milk and meat production output. And in contrast, we do have like intensive and semi-intensive farm, mostly controlled by the feeding and housing and then veterinary management. It only represents 5 to 15%. That's based on that percentage. And then how you think about current situation of Mongolian dairy industry, how can be improve in the future? Mm-hmm. Could you please describe about the current situation about Mongolian dairy industry?
Well, like you mentioned, you've been in the dairy industry for centuries. Everybody pretty much doing their own harvesting and processing of milk products. So the mechanical harvesting and commercial processing on large scale is kind of, relatively new here. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a fledgling industry, the more intensive production, which is, like I said, that's kind of the background that we came from. Since being here, we've visited several farms, definitely not all of them, but we've been on several different farms, and a lot of what we're doing is trying to learn what is the system here, what things are available, what are some of the constraints to growing feed or raising animals, whatever, and then just what assets are here, what things may be missing a little bit, and then trying to figure out how some of the things that we've learned or experienced over the years we can fit or adjust to come up with an actual system of best practices for Mongolia, recognizing that the Australian system, the American system, you can't just take it and plop it here and it's going to work. So that's been a lot of what we've been involved with. Some of the initial things that we kind of noticed, my aspect, I again focused a little more on mastitis, milk quality control, and the milking system itself. Some of the milking systems that we have seen thus far seem to maybe not have been installed up to more modern engineering standards. So they're kind of functioning okay, but at a higher milk production level, I'm not sure that there's going to be enough capacity there to handle that. Some of the other things are maybe a little more difficult to clean. With some of the whey jars and things that are additional things in the system, we've also noticed that cleaning is difficult. Several of the producers that we have worked with don't have access, didn't know even that certain cleaning chemicals like the chlorinated alkaline detergent, this acid sanitizer rinse, they didn't even know those existed. So they're just basically hot water rinsing the system, which is not really adequate to get rid of all the stuff that we need to clean out of there for making a milk product. So
and that has a dramatic impact on the milk quality that's being sold to the consumer.
Yeah, that can affect the taste, the shelf life, how much of, you can get cheese and different dairy products, your yield and those types of things can all be affected by the system cleanliness as well. So those are some initial things that we noticed. And then kind of, thinking outside the box or wondering, can some of the processors, maybe I'm sure that they have those things available because they've got stainless steel in their systems that they need to be cleaning. I'm sure they're doing that. If there's a way that could be made available or given access at least to their producers, kind of to help them be able to clean the systems a little bit.
How about that other areas needs to be improvement about the Dr. John?
So taking a look, one of the things that we noticed was feed availability is very difficult here. It's a challenge. Cropping systems, cropping farms are just starting to get a foothold as well at the same time. And so trying to feed animals to be able to produce up to their genetic potential is a challenge. Cows are animals that eat all the time in herds with high genetics. They will have feed in front of them and they'll eat upwards of 50 kilograms of feed a day so that they can produce the 35, 40 kilos or liters of milk per day. And so consequently, when in a system where there's a limited amount of forage, a limited amount of grains, being able to feed high genetic animals for that kind of production becomes a challenge. And so trying to find that out, and then trying to ascertain when the best time for harvest is. When you're doing Sudan grasses or oat hay or alfalfa or corn silage, when is the optimum time in Mongolia for harvest of those crops so you can beat the frost but it still have high quality feed?
Yeah, as I understood, additionally, I remember that you have that the sampling to check the nutritious ratio. That's so important for our country. We need to about how much that the fodder or their silage, how much nutritious ration included in that. That's so important.
Yeah, and that has been challenging because we have run into situations where the labs aren't taking any feed samples from outside producers or being shut down during the summertime when there's a lot of feeds that need to be evaluated. So those types of challenges make it difficult for dairy producers to be able to balance their rations so that they are optimizing the nutrition for their animals.
Making good choices.
Yeah.
For management.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. And also, I would like to know that what are the most common challenges, and except you mentioned already, and then what you encounter to your work. What is the most common challenge in Mongolia here to work with the dairy industry?
Well, for us personally, it's the language barrier. That's been kind of
How do you typically address to them?
And then some of the other challenges that we've run across would be would include things of a lot of times when talking with producers, they're thinking along the lines of wanting to increase genetics and improve genetic, which is helpful, but when there are constraints on the system at this point in time, it makes it hard for the animal, for the producers to be able to realize the full genetic potential of those animals. And managing the genetics actually starts from when the animal that you have the improved genetics on, while it's still in the womb, while it's still in the uterus, while it's still developing. And it's important that animal, when it's is in utero, the cow's being fed properly and taken care of properly. Then when it's born, that it receives colostrum and is fed properly during that period of time when it's on milk, as well as trying to prevent diseases, because all of these have an impact on how well they'll express their the genetics that they have. And then again, even through the whole development of that heifer, trying to get that heifer to calve at 2 years of age to maximize her production. And then certainly as a cow, limited feed, disease, age, all these things that start having an impact on milk production. And so we need to be looking at ways here in Mongolia to be able to, if we're looking at genetics to help, is making sure that we support that animal all the way through so that she gets the opportunity to express those genetics.
Which a big part is nutrition and health.
Yes.
Yeah, also another major impact is can be our seasonal changes. Like in the wintertime, we have cold season, affect their animal welfare or their facility standard or some quality that can be include that major impact.
Absolutely. When you look at such things as just energy demand for animals, the energy needs for animals in the cold weather increases 15% probably here in Mongolia, maybe as much as 20%. And so that becomes very impactful in being able for milk production. And whereas the animals a lot of the animals here in Mongolia out on the steppe are trying to graze what's left of the feed, the animals on dairies are going to need to be having a higher quality feed to be able to maintain milk production until they stop milking about 2 months before they calve again.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And another thing is just also the housing them indoors, which we do have some pretty cold areas in the States where we have animals housed indoors for a significant portion of the year. But then ventilation becomes a huge issue, sanitation, and just trying to again keep those things clean so that we don't have ammonia buildup, because when we get that ammonia buildup in those barns, it really actually paralyzes some of the defense mechanisms within the lungs that work to get the bad things out that they might have breathed in. And so, we get a lot of just getting into design and those types of things and trying to figure out without making it drafty, how do we keep it warm and keep everything healthy that way? So it does create some challenges.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. And here in our Mongolia, like our facility standard always not really simply complicated. It's complicated to us because of the young animals mostly sick from that point of that such a unstandardized housing. Yeah, some of the areas. Yeah.
That definitely makes it difficult. We've seen a lot of pneumonia issues associated with that. Then on top of that too is with regards to the facility costs. We've got milking parlors and housing areas for the livestock and that type of thing that we're trying to cover their cost with the milk production. And with grazing livestock, it becomes harder to do it when Mongolians are milking their own cows and they're outside. They don't have those extra costs that they have to cover that intensive dairy has to be able to overcome and pay for, along with all the other feeds that or other costs such as feeds and health issues.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a question from the Dr. Laurie. That there is maybe you have difficult case you have experienced in your during the work time, and then what is the most difficult case you have been facing through your experience at work?
A lot of what I did in the States, I did a lot of milk testing. So we had a milk quality lab and we did a lot of bacteriology. Just some of that was just trying to keep up with things over the years as some of the things changed, nomenclature changed. We did have one herd that I got involved with that was having a issue they thought was due maybe to the teat dip causing problems on the teats. Actually, they had a very severe outbreak of herpes mammalitis. And so just trying to work through that and get the tests and things done in a timely manner to get the results back on that was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. In the Mongolia, we have such a new with the CMT test and then all the practical. And then how about you guys introducing to Mongolia, how you to implement that kind of test in Mongolia? You have any perspective?
The CMT test is really something that, especially I think in this context, can be very, very helpful because it's a very simple test. It doesn't take a lot of training to figure out how to read it or to at least get close and to be able to tell whether or not we have basically what we call subclinical mastitis, which basically is that there's an infection or something going on in the udder, but it's not to the point to where she's showing signs. Maybe there's no changes in the milk, there's no swelling in the gland or the udder, no redness, no heat, nothing else is showing, so we don't think anything's wrong, but the test will tell us that there's white blood cells basically accumulating in the udder because of an infection. So it's a way to get a jump on some of those infections and be able to get them under control sooner. Also, we can kind of get an idea of what is the overall udder health in the whole herd by testing on the animals. So I think it's a very handy tool to use here.
Yes, easy and handy. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
And we also we've had a little trouble getting the detergent, the solution in here at times. But I was doing a little research and I found that a group had come up with there's a way to make it out of fairy dishwashing detergent. So we do have that recipe and we're trying that out now and doing some trials ourselves just to see how well that works. And because that'd be something that'd be very easy. We could put that together here quite easily and make that readily available to herds.
Yeah, and then while you're here in Mongolia, maybe you've been visit several dairy farms. And then how about their rules or using for hygienic standard? And then you can say that it's with all the workers or the helpers assistants, they can be used all those methods into that dairy farm with your hygienic system.
We've been trying to do some training on some of the herds that we've been working with as far as just milking hygiene, milking order, the techniques and things that we do to help decrease the spread of if there's any infections within the herd and also to keep the milkers safe as well. from things. And so, so we've been trying to work on that. Another challenge has been we haven't seen a lot of commercially formulated teat dips, post-milking teat dips, disinfectants available readily here. And so again, I was trying to get in touch with some folks. There is one thing that's really kind of unique about being here at VetNet is we do have between the foreign advisors, but also we've had a lot of short-term veterinary volunteers come from around the world, and especially from America. And just through some of our contacts with people back home, are able to then ask some questions, and when we don't know the answers, get some answers on some things. And so I was following up with someone on, is there a way that we can take things that we do have, like povidone iodine, which is like our iodine solution, and then use that as a teat dip, and what would we need to do to it and whatnot. And so trying to get some recipes for that as well.
Okay. How about the Dr. John? Have you faced any difficult case in your experience? How you handle that?
And over that many years, there's been a lot of difficult cases. One that pops into my mind was a case where we were testing calves for persistent infection to BVD, bovine viral diarrhea. And all of a sudden we had a big increase in the number of calves that were being born that were persistently infected. And so working with the tech service veterinarian for the company that provided the vaccine and a university veterinarian that worked with us, we were able to identify where that was coming from, and we realized that it was a case where during the summertime, the animals went from a lot out and grazed, and the fence where for the pasture was butt up against a calf ranch, and the BVD virus was coming from that calf ranch and infecting these animals. Again, it was in the calves were in the dam. At this point, they were between 40 days since they were bred to 120 days. And when they get exposed to BVD virus at that time, those animals become persistently infected. And
they don't show signs themselves, but they can
shed large numbers of BVD after they're born. And they generally don't do well. They end up dying. But before they get to that point of dying, they shed a lot of virus that spreads throughout the whole dairy operation. And so working with, being able to work with other people and helped out tremendously. We went through and we reviewed our vaccination protocols and making sure that they were properly taken care of. We went through and looked at our nutrition and made sure that that was in line. We were able to find some places that we were a little, we had drifted away from what we had originally planned to do that was somewhat impactful on animals being more susceptible to the virus as well. And so we were able to make some adjustments. But it was really important through all of that, as the operation was going through and being looked at very closely, to maintain a humble perspective on everything and being willing to look at everything and say, no, that's fine. This is the way we've always been doing it. And instead of saying, okay, maybe we do need to look at that and sharpen it up. The herd manager out there was tremendous. He was insistent that we take a look at everything they were doing procedural-wise with vaccinations and such. And he was somebody who was really neat to watch, his humility in the whole situation, and wanting to come to an answer and not worried about where the blame lied. He wanted to make sure that he was doing everything possible to do a good job.
Yeah. Based on you mentioned about the BVD is viral, and then that kind of vaccination is really important for Mongolia.
I think so, and that's something that we are trying to get introduced into Mongolia is a BVD IVR vaccine that would be helpful not only to the dairies but also to the feedlots. And for those herders who are providing animals for the feedlots. That will be very important for them as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. And about in Mongolian life, you guys in living with that, working with us with the dairy industry, what did you learn from the, you working as a Mongolian veterinarian?
I think probably a big difference has been a lot of just the constraints as a veterinarian. In America, we had access to a lot of diagnostic laboratories. So if you had a problem on a herd, you could usually take a sample and send it somewhere and get some answers back.
Very quickly.
Usually fairly quickly. I mean, some things, some tests take longer than others, but there wasn't much of a problem with that. And it seems here the couple times that we've been involved with something where we were kind of wanting to send some samples off, we were having difficulties getting them either run in a timely manner, or the chain of command kind of that we had to go through was triggering other not so great responses, like quarantining the entire operation for pneumonia, which seemed a bit harsh, and really affects, for these intensive livestock operations, shutting the place down to where nothing can come in or out for 2 weeks or more that's a killer for business, and it really complicates it. So I think that's been a big one, seeing what the veterinarians are up against here in that way, as far as trying to get some answers and figure out what am I trying to treat, what am I working with, what treatment do I need to provide, and I don't know because I can't figure out what it is because I'm having difficulties with the laboratory system.
And on top of that was just as it moved through the system, having to the chain of command that it had to go through to get to the lab where it was actually going to do the diagnostics takes a lot of extra time. And so I'm trying to streamline that so that operations can get answers quickly. It becomes really important.
Would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Helpful. Okay, thank you. Yeah. And guys, also our national strategies aim to expand the dairy industry in cluster, also in processing facilities. It's could be raised 20 or 25% by 2035. And then based on that description, and we would like to ask your opinion or your perspective, in your future perspective, about the Mongolian dairy industry, how can be developed.
There's a lot of infrastructure that probably needs to be built up to be able to support that type of a goal. Having milking equipment companies, having feed companies that are available to provide different types of feed, understanding crop systems that will work here in Mongolia that will be beneficial to farmers, to crop farmers as well as to dairymen is important. So developing those types of things, developing a system where the animals are grouped together and by production levels. So maybe looking within each operation. Yeah, so calving, doing seasonal calving maybe 2 times a year for a couple of months each time, or 1 time a year. And then treating those groups of animals all the same. That way then, people who are working with, say, breeding the animals or preg checking the animals, hoof trimming the animals, they can be doing that in groups rather than going out to breed 1 cow on the east side and having to drive to the west side to breed 1 cow. Instead, they show up onto a dairy or maybe a group of dairies, and there's a whole group of them that are ready to be bred through a synchronization program. And then that would make for efficiencies, that would help tremendously for the dairy industry to be able to be more efficient and be able to increase milk production. Timing the calvings to when there's more demand for milk. I know that there's a premium for milk sales in the wintertime, setting up calvings to occur so that peak production is occurring during that period of time would be very beneficial.
Wanting to improve the quality of the products that are being produced, processed, and improving shelf life. We bought milk several times and the date looks fine, we get it home and it's not coming out of the carton. And so, just looking at trying to improve that, and that I think that's not just the processor, that does go back to the producers as well. And I think that the processors can, because I believe they're probably making the most money in this system right now from the sale of products. That would be nice if they could funnel some of that back, not give to the producers, but to help educate their producers, the people that are shipping milk to them, and try to help them provide some services. We would call it, say, like maybe a field services, where someone could go out and visit and say, oh, hey, maybe you could do this a little bit different, or if you did this, it would really help us out, or here's, oh, gee, you're running low on these chemicals. Okay, here's some, makes we get the system cleaned up a little better. Just being able to maybe for them to drive some of the improvement in quality within the system as well, as a possibility.
Yeah, the government has talked about wanting to increase milk consumption among school kids as well, and one good way to do that is increase the quality of the milk, so the kids would like to drink the milk and that they enjoy the milk, and so quality milk is a huge driver if we want to increase the health of our kids here in Mongolia and increase their milk consumption.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us in discussion today about your back to the American experience, how it's been, and also how future perspective about Mongolia, how you also can be needs to improve the Mongolian dairy industry. And thank you for joining us about this topic.
Thank you very much.
Yes.